Hey everyone, welcome to MTG 808 Junior. This is Mike, and we are here sharing our tournament recap of our first standard Artisan tournament that took place earlier in the month. And before we get into the deck techs and tournament recaps, we just kind of want to talk about what we do. We are Patreon funded. Big shout outs to our Patreons. All of our youth tournaments. We couldn't have done it without you, Patreons. Thank you so much. Also, if you feel led to support the project, even at $1, we really appreciate it. We also have our YouTube channel where we have content on deck techs, match videos, along with further content in regards to what's going on in the youth scene here on Oahu. We also have our MTG 808 Junior WordPress, where same thing, you can check out the content. Always check back with the website. We also have tournament schedules. Excuse me. And we also have our Facebook. Looking at this picture, we had our first Artisan tournament earlier in the month. We had 11 players. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players in our first Artisan tournament. And looking at them, we have our top 4. We have Isaiah running Demir Surveil. Juggernaut Jansen, who is our reigning scholarship champion, coming in with Mono Black Devotion. We have Joy Paul, or JP, running Bant Big Butts. And we have our champion, S, running Boros Aggro. So yeah, let's look over the deck techs. We do have all their the deck list on MTG Goldfish. We will post the links on the description below. Along with links to our our social media as well as our Patreon. So let's look at Arena. We're gonna talk about our first deck. We have Isaiah's Demir Surveil. So, Surveil, what Surveil is? It's a mechanic used in, I believe, Guilds of Ravnica. So, we have creatures. We have creatures that benefit from the Surveil mechanic. So, Surveil, what it does, you look at X amount of cards. You can either keep them on top of your deck in any order, or you can put them into the graveyard. So this deck really benefits off the mechanics. So we have Thought Erasure, 2 mana sorcery. Look at your opponent's hand. You can choose a non-land card, and that player discards that card, and you Surveil 1. Excuse me. We have Disinformation Campaign, 3 mana for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card and your opponent discards a card. But whenever you Surveil, Disinformation Campaign goes back to your hand. So you have spells that Surveil to bring this back to your hand. So not only does it give you card advantage, it just also brings down your opponent's cards. So we have things that benefit off of Surveil, like Thoughtbound Phantasm, 1 mana for a 2/2 defender. Whenever you Surveil, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. As long as it has 3 or more +1/+1 counter, it can attack as though it didn't have defender. So early on, when this is out, it's a good way to put a good wall against the aggro decks. And late in the game, it will get bigger and you just start swinging in. So this can, at least come in for 5. We also have Night Veil Sprite. Flyer, 1/2. When it attacks, you Surveil 1. And we have Demir Spybug, 2 mana for a 1/1 Flying Menace. Whenever you Surveil, you put a +1/+1 counter on Demir Spybug. So all the cards benefit from all the cards that Surveil pay off, helps your payoff creatures. So these two, alongside with Night Veil Predator. I used this card earlier in my Demir control deck, and yeah, flying, death touch, hexproof. That's pretty big on a creature. Essentially, once this is on the battlefield, it'll be hard for your opponents to answer this. We also have our Surveil spells also come in the form of Discovery Dispersal. You Surveil 2, then you draw a card. And we have Sinister Sabotage, great counter magic. And when you counter a spell and you Surveil 1. We also have Notion Rain, good card draw. You Surveil 2, you draw 2 cards, then it deals 2 damage to you. And then we have Mystical Dispute. This is not a Surveil card, but this is a very good. This is very good counter magic. It's, especially against the blue decks. I would see this more as a sideboard piece against other blue decks, because late in the game, this card, essentially, it doesn't do its job, I guess. Early in the game it will, but yeah, late in the game, chances are your opponent should be able to have enough mana to pay its cost, the tax cost with a 3 colorless. And we also have Unexplained Disappearance, 2 mana for an instant. Return target creature to its opponent's hand. You Surveil 1, along with Tyrant Scorn. Choose one of 2. You can destroy target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less, or you return a creature to its owner's hand. So in a way, it could also benefit your creatures too. If you feel like one of your creatures about to die, you can just bounce it back to your hand. Alright, and for sideboard, we have 2 Negates, 2 Epic Downfall, 2 Mirror Shield, 3 Crowded Canarium, kind of 2 board wipe just to clean up against the aggro decks, 3 copies of Omnixilis Cruelty, 2 copies of Ashiok, kind of helps mills your opponent, as well as exile cards from their opponent's library. Graveyard. And we have 1 copy of Final Death. Alright. Mana base, running 4 Dismal Backwater, 2 Dimir Guildgate, 8 Swamps, 8 Islands, and 1 Mystic Sanctuary. I would actually go down on the Dimir Guildgates, just because 8 tap lands really slows your deck down. But that's just my preference. I like Mystic Sanctuary just because it allows you to kind of pick up one of your non-creature spells and puts them on top of the library. So like you can bring back one of your Tyrant Scorn, you can put Thought Erasure, it goes back on top of your library. Congratulations to Isaiah for making 4th at the tournament. He's been really hungry. He's been grinding games. He's been I believe he was top 4 at our youth scholarship tournament as well. So congratulations to him, and we look forward to what he brings to our next youth tournament. All right, coming in at 3rd, we do have Juggernaut Jansen. Again, he was our winner at the previous youth scholarship tournament. What he brought here is Mono Black Devotion, or kind of like Mono Black Aggro, if you will. So his 1 jobs, he has Falmar Knight, Hateful Eidolon, and Vampire of the Dire Moon. Good ways to start off the game. A couple of Death Touch creatures. Most likely your opponents will not want to block the Death Touch creature, just because like if your opponent has like a big creature, you wouldn't you probably just want to save that creature for something big, so you just let the Death Touch creatures go through. We also have Hateful Eidolon, 1 mana lifelink. Whenever enchanted creature dies, draw a card for each aura attached to it. We do like the inclusion of the lifelink creatures, just because 1, it gains life. We have 4 copies of Eternal Taskmaster. When it enters the battlefield, it comes in tapped, but whenever it attacks, you pay 2 colorless, 1 black. If you do, return target creature card from a graveyard to your hand. This deck has a lot of payoff creatures, and if they just so happen to go into the graveyard, whenever Taskmaster attacks you can bring those creatures back. We also have 4 copies of Order of Midnight. It's good for the adventure. The Alter Fate. What it does, you return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, or you can cast it for 1 colorless, 1 black for a 2/2 flyer that can't block. I did forget to mention that Falmire Knight also has the adventure ability. So Profane Insight, 2 colors, 1 black for an instant, draw a card and you lose a life. So for those of you who are unaware of the adventure mechanic, so what it does is you can pay for the profane, you can pay the casting cost of one side, so it's usually the non-creature part, so it goes on adventure, so it go into exile for a bit, and when you're ready to bring it onto the battlefield, you just cast it regularly. Yeah, we do have some copies of Timret, Chosen from Death, double black for an enchanted creature, a legendary enchanted creature. It has toughness equal to devotion to black. For somebody who does not know what devotion means, is if you look at the top of the top right corner, you see the color symbol. So that's the devotion. So for in this case, if Timur were to enter the battlefield, it would come in as a 2/2. So the devotion will be 2 black. So then the toughness would be 2. So the more you see the black mana symbol, it adds on to the devotion. We also have some copies of Deathless Knight. It's a hybrid mana, so it does count for devotion. So it's either 4 black or 4 black or 4 green. So in this case, you're gonna pay the black. 4/2 with haste. Whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, return Deathless Knight from your graveyard to your hand. So with the lifelink creatures, Vampire of Dire Moon and Hateful Eidolon, when they attack, you can bring this back into your hand. We also have, in terms of one of our payoff cards is Gray, Merchant of Asphodel. 3 colorless, double black for a zombie. When Gary enters the battlefield, sorry, I pronounce it Gary. Gray Merchant of Asphodel enters the battlefield. Each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black, and you gain life equal to the life lost this way. So for instance, if you have Deathless Knight and Timurate out, when this enters the battlefield, it counts as 2 for the Gray, 4 for the Deathless Knight, and 2 for the Timurate, so which comes out to 4, 5, 8 mana. Your devotion is 8, so your opponent will lose 8 life and you will gain 8 life. And we also have Angrath, Captain of Chaos. What it does, its passive ability is really good. Your creatures you control have menace. So what menace is, it can't be blocked unless except by 2 or more creatures. And its minus ability, you amass. So what amass does is you create a zombie army token with 2 +1/+1 counters. So it's a nice aggro deck all around. But later in the game, once your battlefield is developed, you kind of go in for Gray, kind of just to close out games. In terms of disruption, we do have 2 copies of Agonizing Remorse, 1 colorless, 1 black. What it does, you look at your opponent's hand, you reveal a non-land card or a card from the graveyard. You exile that card and you lose a life, along with Drag to the Underworld. This card costs X less, where X is the devotion, your devotion to black. So in most cases, this card, depending on what your battlefield, it could cost either double black or 2 black, 1 colorless, and you destroy a target creature. He is running 22 swamps. In terms of sideboard, there is no sideboard. When we were building this deck, I figured, like, hey, the meta game is going to be new, so we figured, hey, let's just try without a sideboard. So yeah, he made it to top 4. Big ups to Jansen, and hopefully he does well at the next Standard Artisan tournament. Next up, we have our second place, JP, running Bant Big Butts. Bant is a color code blue, white, and green. And what this deck, it runs around High Alert and Huatli. So High Alert is 1 blue, 1 colorless, 1 black for an enchantment. Creatures you control assign combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Huatli, it's 2 colorless, hybrid green or white for a planeswalker. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So essentially what these both do is your creatures. So if you look at let's look at our creatures. We have Yoked Ox 0/4. So right now this looks like a 1 mana 0/4 creature that does nothing. But with High Alert on combat, this actually deals 4 damage because it will assign damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So this deck has its creatures has a whole bunch of big toughness or big butts. So we have 4 copies of Yoked Ox, 4 copies of Merfolk Seeker Keeper, 4 toughness, so it deals 4 damage on combat. Concordia Pegasus deals 3 damage on combat. War Screecher, 3 damage on combat. Is there anything else? 4 Senate Courier, deals 4 damage on combat. And we have cards like Shimmer Possibilities to help dig for the pieces. So you look at the top 4 cards of the library, put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom in any order. So depending where you're at in the game, you probably want to dig to look for your either High Alert or Huatli. And then once you're ready to Alpha Strike or attack with all your creatures, you have Tower Defense. 1 green, 1 colorless for an instant. Creatures you control get +0/+5 and gains reach until end of turn. So that's pretty big. So if you were to attack with Yoked Ox and Merfolk Seeker Keeper, so on combat they deal 8. But with this out, it adds an additional 10. So you're dealing 18 damage in 1 turn, and that's pretty big. Alright. Also, this deck is running Dovin's Veto, kind of to counter some spot removal or anything that could potentially remove your pieces. And in terms of mana base, we are running 5 plains, 5 islands, 2 swamps, 3 copies of Tranquil Cove, 1 Blossoming Sands, and 4 copies of Thornwood Falls. So the hard thing about running these 3 color decks is the mana base. And because we're limited to these tap lands, it potentially could slow down the game. Well, slow down for, trying to accomplish what you're trying to do. So, yeah. Oh, forgot Huatli, its minus ability. I'm sorry. You -3 and you gain life equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control. So most cases you can gain 4 life. 4 life, 4 life, 3 life, 3 life, 4 life. 4 life, yeah. So this deck really does well against the aggro decks because for the most part, for the most part, these are just gonna be blocking creatures until High Alert comes down or Huatli comes down. Because once this comes down, you're pretty much attacking with a big army. Congratulations to JP. JP came in 2nd at our previous youth scholarship tournament. He's just been showing that he's been a house to deal with, and yeah, big shout outs to him. And yeah, and finally we're gonna go to our first place deck. We have S running Boros Aggro. So I think in the video we covered earlier, whenever there's a new format and whenever a new set comes out, chances are nobody knows how the new metagame is new, so everyone's trying to brew up decks just to see what works. In most cases, the aggro decks would probably do well in the beginning weeks just because the fastest deck wins. So in this deck, we're running, let's see, 1, 2, 4 1-drops in the form of Healer's Hawk, Goblin Banneret, and 2 copies of Weaselback Redcap. So nice early game threats. We have Useful Knight, 2/1 for 2 mana, first strike. Inspiring Veteran, 2 mana for 2/2. All their knights you control get +1/+1. So I think this deck kind of revolves more around a knight-ish theme. We have copies of Sky Knight Legionnaire, we have Embereth Paladin, we have Fireborn Knight, True Fire Captain. So this just kind of helps makes your knights bigger. It doesn't help much with Healer's Hawk and Goblin Banneret. So like maybe going up 4 copies of Goblin Banneret. There's also, I believe it's a Venerable Knight. This is probably an auto include in a deck like this. So it's 1 mana for a 2/1 knight. When it dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on target knight you control. So just some feedback, maybe putting this in 4 copies of this and maybe 4 copies of Weasel Back Red Cap over the Healer's Hawk and Goblin Banneret. In terms of non-creature spells, we have some copies of Brimstone Trebuchet. Sorry, I probably hacked the word up. 2 colorless, 1 red for Artifact Wall, Defender Reach, so nice blocker against the flyers. Tapping deals 1 damage to each opponent, but whenever a knight enters the battlefield, you untap Brimstone. So I think it'd be more beneficial if these creatures were actually copies of Venerable Knight. In terms of non-creature spells, we have Scorching Dragon, a copy of Scorching Dragon Breath. We have some copies of Shock. We have 3 copies of Take Heart, a copy of Righteousness. Let's see, Disenchant. Kind of to answer, I think because pacifism was such a big thing in Standard Pauper, I guess Disenchant was some sort of answer to pacifism, alongside copies of 2 pacifisms, Shining Armor, Revoke Existence. Instead of pacifism, I would go more along the lines of Glass Casket, just because if there's a creature that's been pacified with pacifism, activated abilities still work. So Glass Casket could be a better option. And let's see, mana base, 2 Boros Guildgate, 11 Plains, 12 Mountains. Maybe going up 1 more, I'm not sure. Maybe they want 2 just so it could be fast. That's what I'm thinking. And I would say Disenchant and Revoke Existence will probably do best in the sideboard. Looking at the sideboard, we have 2 copies of Healer's Hawk, another copy of Disenchant, Impassioned Orator, Useful Knight. I would just include this in the main deck. A copy of Jostle. Excuse me. Copy of Jaws deals 2 target creature you control and target creature you don't control. Target creature you control gets +2/+1 until end of turn, and if it's a knight, then those creatures fight each other. So this is kind of similar to Rabid Bite. Not similar to Rabid Bite. Rabid Bite only goes one way. So when it fights, that means they're literally fighting each other. They deal damage to each other. Rimrock Knight. This would actually be an auto include into the main deck, because looking at this deck, because you're more in an aggressive deck, Rimrock Knight seems to be more of the better option. We have a copy of Arnival Tactician. It's another knight, and with Dizzying Swoop, nice tempo play. Tap up to 2 target creatures, and when it comes in, it's a 2/3 flyer. Triumph of Annex, 2 colors, 1 red for a Saga. Saga was first introduced in Dominaria, I believe. So the first 3 counters. Until end of turn, target creature gets trampled and gets +X/+0, where X is the counter. So level 1, a creature will get +1/+0. Level 2 will get +2/+0 until end of turn. Level 3 will get +3/+0 on end of turn. With trample, of course. And level 4, target you control fights up to another target creature you control. So this is similar to Joust. I would probably go up another copy of Joust. And just some feedback, maybe more removal pieces. Scorching Dragonfire and Shocks are good. I would say add two more copies of Shock, maybe some number copies of Scorching Dragonfire, and maybe some copies of Lava Coil. So, you know, nice solid deck. You know, you can tell that from this, S put in a lot of work, excuse me. And she worked with her dad to brew up this deck. So congratulations to S. This is her first tournament finish. We look forward to seeing more things from her as we move forward. All right. Now we can go over the End Boss deck. The End Boss deck is one of the decks I ran during the Artisan events. And where is it? Oh, the Mirror Control End Boss. So basically, this is just a solid control deck. 3 copies of Disfigure, 2 copies of Hero's Downfall, and excuse me, Thought Erasure to kind of early game disruption. Look at their hands, see what they're running. Tyrant Scorn, destroy target creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less, or we bounce a creature back. Narset to kind of dig for cards, dig for answers. Sinister Sabotage, counter target spell, and you Surveil one. So the Surveil one helps because most likely if you're just looking at if their next card's a land, depending on where you're at, you probably won't put the land in the graveyard to kind of find more answers. Cry of the Canarium, great board wipe against the aggro decks. Murder, just straight up destroy target creature. Pretty solid. Chemist's Insight, draw a card. Jumpstart, you discard a card. You pay Chemist's Insight casting cost, and you just draw 2 more cards. Devious Cover Up, as this card's been used before, basically what it does, it counters a spell, but it exiles the spell being countered. And then you take up to 4 cards in from your library and you shuffle them back into your deck. So you get deck advantage, so you always will have gas. So late in the game, most likely like lands will probably be in your graveyard, and you kind of just, your deck is just filled with more answers. And then your creatures is Tomebound Lich, 3 mana for 1/3 Death Touch lifelink. When it enters the battlefield or deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card, you discard a card. So this is a nice brick against the aggro decks or creatures that are just big. You know, they would have to go through Tomebound Lich to actually do anything threatening in terms of combat. And then another payoff card is Nightbell Predator. We talked about this in Isaiah's deck. If this resolves, you know, it'll be hard for anyone to remove this creature unless you have maybe 2 copies of Cry of the Canarium, 2 copies of Flame Sweep, or you just block. You have a big creature that has reach that can block this creature. Yeah. So this is the result from our first Artisan tournament. Our next tournament coming up is this coming Saturday, February 29th at the Planet. Doors open, I believe, opens at 1. Tournament starts at 1:30. And we hope to see you folks there. If you like the video, thumbs up, ring the bell, hit the bell to subscribe, get notifications, and yeah, we'll catch you next time. Peace.